My name was Mary. I'm a housewife. I was busy with my husband and daughter every day. I didn't have social contact, no job, no money, no self-esteem, and I was fully devoted to the family. One day, I took my daughter who had pneumonia to the children's hospital by bus for several times. When I came back from the hospital, it was raining cats and dogs. "Ron, when on earth will you divorce? I've been pregnant for 4 months. Yesterday's B ultrasound showed that a son came." Let me tell you, I'm not that patient. When I was completely wet, I opened the door and walked into the living room. The woman's delicate voice came from the half-closed master bedroom. "Baby," said the man. I was stunned. I stood straight in the living room, staring at the bedroom of my husband and me, Ron. My body seemed to be frozen and trembling. No. I was finally woken up. I gently put my daughter on the sofa, kicked the door open, and rushed in. All of a sudden, the man and the woman in the room screamed as if they had seen a ghost. My face was ghastly pale, my body was trembling, and my lips were trembling. My eyes fell on the slightly swollen belly of the woman on the bedsheet. Her eyes were as sharp as needles. "Mary, you're back. Listen to me." Ron was the first to react. He quickly took a bathrobe and wrapped himself up. Then he walked towards me, trying to pull me out. I slapped him hard across the face with all my strength. "Mary, let me explain." I cried so sadly that Ron almost carried me out forcefully. I was pressed on the sofa by him and saw his lips open and close. "It's really not what I mean. You know, Mom." He didn't continue. The light in his eyes flickered, and he finally lowered his head in front of me. I was shaking like a lamb. They were so happy just now, but now he said that it was not his intention. The man's words were so hypocritical. "Ron, Sherry, I finally found the famous Chinese doctor to protect the fetus and prescribed a lot of medicine." As soon as Ron finished speaking, the door of the living room rang, and my mother-in-law came in with many bags of Chinese medicine, full of excitement on her face. My mother-in-law probably didn't expect me to be at home. When she looked up, she saw me and was stunned for a while. A trace of embarrassment flashed across her face, but soon her eyes were filled with disgust. I sneered in my heart. No wonder I hadn't seen my mother-in-law for a few days. It turned out that she was secretly looking for an old Chinese doctor for the grandson of that woman. And my daughter was suffering from pneumonia. She had a high fever of 40 degrees Celsius for several days, but no one came to take care of her. Conspiracy, all these must have been planned by them long ago. When I was about to die in pain, my daughter, who was lying on the sofa, burst into tears as if she had foreseen the miserable fate of the future. My heart ached, and I stood up in a hurry. "Ron, my belly hurts." At this time, the woman's painful cry came from the bedroom. All of a sudden, my mother-in-law's face changed color and rushed to the bedroom. And my husband, who I had loved for so many years, only took a look at my daughter and then ran into the bedroom nervously. His eyes were full of pity. I know that the pain was not for my daughter. Since I gave birth to my daughter, he had never shown such an expression to me and my daughter. I was so sad, disappointed, and desperate that I picked up my daughter and rushed out of the house. The rain was still raging in the air, and the rain column whipped on my body. When the night fell, I was still wandering on the street with my 1-year-old daughter in my arms. "Do you want to die?" There were cars coming and going on the street. I lost my consciousness and walked randomly. I didn't care when I heard the driver stretching out his head to scold me. Yes, I wanted to die now. All I wanted was to die as soon as possible. What's the point of living for a woman after such a thing? I stood blankly under a billboard in the dark, looking up at the warm and sweet advertisement with a happy family on it. My tears were like broken beads. After graduating from the university, my husband, Ron, entered a branch of a local bureau and soon became the director of the branch. Not long ago, he who was supposed to take over the position of the general committee in the next few years, unexpectedly stopped his salary but remained his post. He opened a planning and design company, and soon there was a sign of being successful. He was handsome and accomplished, with many halos above his head. But who knew that I had devoted all my heart and soul to him under his glorious appearance? I had loved him for so many years. Back then, in order to let him enter the key municipal bureau after graduating from college, I begged my father to give him a large sum of money to get rid of the relationship with him. Finally, He got his wish to enter this important department. I was afraid that he would be excluded in the department. I begged my father again and again to find the old leaders and begged them. Finally, he became the director of this key bureau step by step. I gave up everything for his career. I even lost my wonderful job and went around him every day. In fact, the second year, my father was diagnosed with terminal liver cancer. Because of lack of money for treatment, he died early. I was so guilty that I felt ashamed. In the past few years, I had been disheveled and slovenly, while he had become more and more handsome and gorgeous. In fact, I was only 24 years old. Back then, I was the campus belle and attracted many men's attention. I gritted my teeth so hard that my red lips were bleeding, and I closed my eyes in despair and pain. All of a sudden, "Don't move." With a gust of cold wind, a strong hand wrapped around my neck from behind and pulled me into an alley nearby. Hiss! The clothes on my chest were torn a little. Before I came to my senses, a little salty lips bed on my lips and kissed me hard on the wall. I couldn't speak. This man was not Ron. I was startled and hugged Cassie tightly. Subconsciously, I met a rogue sexual invasion. The first thing is to protect my beloved Cassie. I put Cassie in my clothes and struggled with fear, but the young man's strong body firmly covered me and my daughter. When I struggled in vain, my breath was shallow, and my body gradually became soft in the man's arms. "Hurry up! Don't let him run away!" At this moment, I saw a group of men running fiercely towards this dark alley through the dim streetlight. In an instant, I understood. Cooperate with me. Don't move. The man on top of me clung to me and my daughter tightly, burying his face in my chest. He whispered in a hoarse voice, "Help me act. I won't hurt you." The cold temperature on the man's body and the violent heartbeat mixed together, making my body tremble. My hand touched the warm liquid on the man's body, and there was a thick smell of blood between his nostrils. It seemed that the man was seriously injured after being chased by the gangsters. At the same time, an idea flashed in my mind. I thought of the scene in the TV play about war where a woman held a child and drew the enemy away. I suddenly pushed the man on my body and ran towards another opposite alley with Cassie in my arms. My body was stained with the man's blood, and the blood dripped on the ground of the alley. Then I ran back quickly. Soon, the group of fierce men came to the alley and stopped. They turned on their phones, and the flashlight shone everywhere. At last, it fell on us. I gritted my teeth and pushed the man down to the wall behind me. I turned around and covered him in the darkness. My fist began to hit him like rain. I cried as I beat him. "Son of a bad woman! I abandoned my job for you. I washed your clothes and cooked for you every day, and I used Dad's money to help you get promoted and make money. But you seduced another woman outside and made her pregnant. Don't you feel sorry for me and our daughter when doing this?" I cried so hard that my heart was broken into pieces. I beat him like a lunatic and let out all my suppressed emotions. My performance was so real. The man froze and sat on the ground in silence. Obviously, he didn't expect me to say something like that. At the same time, the men at the corner finally moved their phones away from us. They might believe that we are just a couple who were quarreling. My daughter was smart. She opened her mouth and cried bitterly. "Damn it! He ran away!" The man in the lead outside cursed fiercely. "Brother, look! There is blood on the ground. He must have escaped from this alley." One of them suddenly pointed at another opposite alley and shouted, "Go after him!" The man in the lead looked at it and waved his arm. Then he led a group of men to the opposite alley. I turned around. "Hurry up. They will come back if they can't find you later." I urged him. He stood up silently, pulled me into his arms, touched my red lips with his cold finger pulp, and asked in a deep voice, "What's your name?" In the sky, a lightning struck. In a flash, I saw the man's face clearly. He was so handsome. His deep eyes and sharp features were so perfect that, as a married woman, my heart was beating fast. I had always liked the handsome men. The reason why I was willing to sacrifice myself for Ron was mostly because he had a good appearance. I looked at him blankly and blurted out, "Mary?" With a pale smile at the corners of his mouth, he said in a low and magnetic and hoarse voice, "Okay, I remember." Then he turned around quickly and strode into the depths of the alley. I stared blankly at the man's figure disappearing in the darkness. Even in the thick darkness, I could feel that this man's body was full of inherent dignity and arrogance. It was difficult for such a man to be associated with such fighting and killing on the scene. I was a little surprised, but I soon forgot it. I looked around and was frightened. It turned out that I came to such a complicated village in a state of unconsciousness. After this incident, I was completely sober. My daughter had fallen asleep, and her face was red. I touched it with my hand, and it was hot. And my body had been soaked in the rain, constantly trembling, so weak that I would fall at any time. I picked up my daughter and walked quickly home. When I got home, that woman had already left. Ron was smoking on the sofa, while her mother-in-law sat aside with a long face. When I appeared at home with my daughter in my arms, neither my mother-in-law nor my husband came to greet and comfort me as if they didn't see me. My heart was so cold. Gritting my teeth, I took antipyretics for my daughter, bathed her, and sent her to sleep in the children's room. Then I finished bathing and walked out in pajamas. Mary, I'm sorry. As soon as I sat down on the sofa, Ron, who was smoking with her head down, suddenly raised his head and said, "We don't love each other anymore. Let's divorce." The word divorce scared me out of my wits. If he could say that he loved me and told me that he and Sherry were just acting according to the circumstances, he would immediately make a clean break with Sherry and begged me to give him a chance. I still loved him deeply. Even if he made another woman pregnant, I would be willing to give him a chance. After all, we have an emotional foundation, and we had our daughter, Cassie. But the reality was cruel. Mary, it doesn't matter if you call me despicable or selfish. Sherry and I have a child now. It's a fact. I have to be responsible for her. I'm sorry. Ron continued without hesitation. Like an iron fist in my chest, it hurt so much that I couldn't breathe. Ron, are you so cruel to betray me and our daughter? I am your wife. Mary, think it over. We don't love each other anymore. Divorce is good for everyone. Ron stressed his tone, showing no guilt at all, but impatience on his face. I was stunned. By the way, I remembered Sherry. I saw her when Ron took me to a party held by their company. She was beautiful and enchanting at that time and made a splash at the party. After that, he told me that she was Sherry, the daughter of a big boss in City A. It turned out that he had hooked up with the sugar mommy. A smell of blood came out of my mouth. My body shook, and I almost fell down. Mary, get a divorce. Don't beg for nothing. At this time, after her son said it clearly, my mother-in-law finally revealed her true thought. She took out a few pieces of prepared paper from the sofa beside her and threw them in front of me. She said coldly and ruthlessly. The words divorce agreement on the white paper stung my eyes. My internal organs were burning. What about Cassie? I murmured. What? It's just a useless girl. The mother-in-law cursed coldly, with resentment and disgust flashing in her eyes. With red eyes, I glared at my mother-in-law and said, Mom, do you really have the heart to scold Cassie? She is just a child, and the blood of your family is also flowing in her body. Who knows whose bastard it is? It's good enough to tolerate her till now. Granny snorted disdainfully and said in disgust, Mom, what are you talking about? I couldn't bear it anymore. My mind was numb. I didn't think too much about my mother-in-law's vicious words. I just thought that she valued boys more than girls. A trace of guilt flashed through my mother-in-law's eyes. She said impatiently, Mary, just leave now. It's good for everyone. Ron doesn't love you anymore. You are still young. You will find a better man in the future. Why do you have to stay in our family? Besides, Sherry is 4 months pregnant with the child of our family. It's not Ron's fault. You should blame me. It's all my idea. I looked at this old face in surprise. I was shocked by her logic thinking, and I was even more shocked by her thick skin. I actually called such a despicable woman Mom and lived with her for 5 years. How did I get through all these years? Until this moment, I still looked at that man, the man I had tried my best to love, and hoped that he could say something fair. But he didn't. Sign it quickly. If you don't sign it, we'll go to court. We've consulted the lawyer before. My mother-in-law continued to urge me fiercely. If you can divorce without hesitation, I will ask Ron to pay you $2,000 per month for alimony. Otherwise, you can only get out of the house without getting anything according to the contract. The words, "get out without getting anything," reminded me of a serious question. Since they have planned everything, how should we divide the property? I picked up the agreement in a hurry and read it. When I saw the last scene, I was so angry that I fainted. I didn't know when I was woken up by the cries of baby. When I opened my eyes, I saw Cassie lying next to me and crying hysterically. My heart ached. I quickly got up and held her in my arms to comfort her. Hearing my voice, Cassie stopped crying and looked at me with her beautiful but tearful eyes, as if comforting me. My nose twitched and tears streamed down. Then I looked around in surprise. It was a small house with one bedroom and one living room. The light was dim. There were several pieces of half-old furniture and several suitcases scattered in the room. When I looked carefully, I found that they belonged to Cassie and me. It was a half-old neighborhood outside. A divorce agreement was put on the bedside table, with a piece of paper and a bank card on it. I walked over and picked up the letter, sneering. The letter was from Ron. "Mary, just accept the fact. It's impossible for us to be together anymore. As long as you sign the divorce agreement, I will pay you $3,000 per month as the alimony. If you change your mind, call me. Besides, this is an apartment for you two. You can live here from now on. Sherry is pregnant, so I have to take her home. In order to avoid unnecessary embarrassment, you don't come back again. I will pay the rent on time. Wish you happiness. Signature, Ron." With the letter in my hand, my whole body began to tremble uncontrollably. Until this moment, my last hope for Ron was completely extinguished. This man was so heartless and despicable. Let's not talk about our relationship. What about our daughter? Didn't he have any feelings for her? What's more, the big house he and his mother-in-law lived in was bought with the money of my parents who sold the old house. They paid less than $300,000 for the house of about $1 million, and the rest was all my money. Now we were divorced, and they let me leave without any property. They only gave me a little money every month. Is this to send a kitten or a dog away? I looked at the scattered luggage boxes in the room. How impatient they were. I fell on the bed and my eyes were so dry that there was no tears in them. After lying on the bed for a night, I gradually figured out some problems. Since things had come to this and Ron was so heartless, there was no need to maintain the marriage. There was nothing to regret about divorcing. However, there were some things that I wouldn't give up, such as that house. At that time, the price of the house had reached almost $5 million now. I would never leave this house to that disgusting family. Early in the morning of the second day, I went back with my daughter in my arms to seek justice. The streets outside were full of police cars, sirens, and the whole city was cordoned off, trying to catch the murderer. The TV news of the shop was broadcasting the news of last night. Last night, the only heir of the Davis family, the richest man in a city, was shot by the gangsters. He was seriously injured and almost died. His grandpa was furious and went to the police station. The police station took it seriously and began to search the whole city. Randall is the only inheritor of Robinson's property. It seems that the shooting case is not simple. It is said that several uncles of the Davis family are very dissatisfied with the inheritance of the property by himself. They are jealous and have a fierce internal strife. Randall is indeed a business genius. He is scheming and resourceful. Less than a year after he took over the company, he has made the fortune of the Davis Group on the list of the richest people in the country. I didn't expect that such a person would also be assassinated one day. Even heroes have difficulties. There were discussions about the CEO of the Davis Group, Randall, everywhere. I was not unfamiliar with the name Randall. It's often seen on TV news and financial channels, but as a woman who focused on her family, a man liked Randall who was completely isolated from my world. To be honest, I had never paid attention to him, and I didn't even know what he looked like. I was listening to these discussions blankly, a little absent-minded. Inexplicably, I thought of last night. That young man was chased by the gangsters, and my heart beat fast, but soon I calmed down. Who was Randall? The inheritor of a rich family and the president of the Davis Group were always accompanied by guardians. How could he be so down and out? What's more, there is no such a coincidence and absurd thing in this world. Therefore, I shook my head and soon ignored the discussions about these things. I just thought about how to deal with my husband and parents-in-law later. After getting off the bus, I gritted my teeth and walked quickly towards my former home. The elevator went up to 8 floors. I took out the key, but when I inserted the key into the lock, I was stunned. The door couldn't be opened at all, and the lock had been replaced. I gritted my teeth, took out my phone, and called the police without hesitation.